Hello and welcome back, or welcome to Wake Up with Dr. Cheryl. We have a live show tonight, this afternoon, and we have a very honored and internationally known guest, John Gray. And this is very exciting because we're going to talk about, the theme that I talk about is healing the relationship with money. And I've been focusing recently on the relationship with men and women and how they deal with money. So this is perfect because John has a wonderful new book out and we can talk about this very openly. And we have a live audience. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. And thank you to all the staff. Anyway, John, tell us about your new book.
Well, people know me as the author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and I've been teaching that for now 30 years. But the new book is, I've written this with a woman, Barbara Annis. First time I've done a collaborative book. And it's about men and women's challenges in the workplace. And it's fun to be talking about this on your show, which is Wake Up, because that's really what needs to happen in the workplace. It's kind of a wake up. I talk about 8 blind spots in the workplace, and the same blind spots exist between men and women at home as well. So we'll get into that, and particularly when we're trying to make decisions, one of the topics you've been talking about, making decisions around finances, there's a lot of blind spots there. So, one of the questions we talked about before was husband and wife trying to make a decision about, okay, are we going to save money? Are we going to spend money? Are we going to invest it here? Are we going to take money out here? What are we going to do about this? A woman has a value system which tends to be 80 to 90% of the time a greater emphasis on security, not taking risks. 80 to 90% of the time a man kind of goes, well, let's go for bigger is better, and so what if we take a little risk? And so when he's like making a decision, we ought to do this, and she's wanting to make, is this really safe? She'll ask a lot of questions. Often men misinterpret this to mean that she doesn't trust his ability to solve the problem. And so he gets all defensive about it. Now this isn't just at home, but this is like one of the blind spots in the workplace. We asked over 100,000 men and women at 60 Fortune 500 companies where we did our courses and we do a survey. And one of the blind spots we would label as, do women ask too many questions? And women would say no, and almost all of the men said yes. Men particularly don't like women asking so many questions, and women don't understand, what is this big deal? And women, on their other hand, one of the blind spots is they often feel excluded, and men go, why is she feeling excluded? Well, one of the reasons women feel excluded is because men don't ask enough questions,
I find it interesting that you have written a book with a woman. So tell us about that.
Well, it's really been an amazing experience. I think all my books are wonderful, but I think this is my best book, most challenging book, because I have a woman co-author. So every idea I have, she actually had a completely different point of view. We'd have to have a big discussion about every idea. I've never took so long to write a book. At 3 years to write this book.
3 years.
But I think it's the best book ever.
It took that long to get through the solutions, the solutions?
Well, it was like she spent 20 years talking about gender differences in the workplace, and I spent 30 years talking about gender differences primarily in our romantic relationships, parenting, dating, and all of that.
Oh, that's a big shift.
So we've been answering the same kind of questions, but from a different perspective. And I really like her perspective because every time she would point out to me, sometimes she'd say, well, John, you can't say that. And I said, why can't I say that? I said, because that upsets some women. And I said, why? That's ridiculous. And she'd explain it to me. She increased my, what we call gender intelligence, an awareness of how we're different, but in a positive way. So, I don't feel like I was restrained by political correctness. Okay, that's a little too extreme. But there's certain ways that men phrase things that really are quite often taken the wrong way by women. And men can make small adjustments. Here's one example, and I learned this with my wife, Bonnie. I mean, it made a huge difference in our marriage, which is one of our first arguments is I was saying something, and she got really upset about it. And I said, I was just kidding. And she says, well, anytime you follow a statement with just kidding, I hate that statement. And many women feel that way, which is that men will just, just kidding. And if somebody gets their feelings hurt, I didn't really mean it. Well, women don't let it go that quickly. And what we see now is stress tests show that when you say something that causes stress in a woman, the stress doesn't just go away if you say just kidding. See, to a guy, just kidding, no big deal. Okay, all right, I'll let it go. But for a woman, you say, just kidding, her brain is still going on it. Why would he say that? What does that mean? What kind of person is he? What does he think about me? Literally, what we see is that they can measure this. The neuroscientists have proven that men have an off switch in their brain, and women don't.
Yes, women's brains are always going.
That's right. They don't turn off.
And they're always processing the emotion part of it too.
Emotion, relational, past, present, future. They're going all over the place. Man's doing one thing at a time. You know, it's like, let's focus on this. Well, she's all over the place. They did one study where they studied men and women when they come home from work. And they measured blood flow to the brain. And what they found is a woman sitting on a couch measuring blood flow increases. Her brain becomes busier. And you ask her, so what are you thinking? She says, I'm thinking about all the things I should be doing while I'm sitting here doing nothing. Then they do the same test on men.
Yes.
And there's no blood flow to his brain as soon as he sits down.
It's the nothing box.
It's the nothing box, exactly. And you say, what are you thinking? Nothing. And now you have the physiological proof. Nothing, you know?
Yes. And we need to embrace that to have a healthy relationship with men, because and men need to understand that women are always going. They're always thinking.
It's understanding both sides of things and having a respectful appreciation for those differences, not always liking them, but not always liking them, but accepting them and moving towards embracing them. And part of it is recognizing there is a value to it. That's the key to it. That's what I feel gender intelligence really is. It's a step up from men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Most of my message there was about understanding the differences between men and women in a positive way. But we really want to step it up, particularly for the workplace, but also at home, to recognize the strengths of men and women in a positive way. Because often what women bring to the workplace is not seen as a strength. It's often seen as a deterrent. It's like slowing us down, not letting us get everything's done.
Don't you think that also has to do with the way we communicate with one another?
Yes, but how we communicate first comes from what we value. There's like a great commercial right now for a telephone company. And it says to kindergarten kids, what's better? Faster or slower? And of course, what do they say? Faster, faster. Well, that's and certainly with a phone, you want faster downloads, you want better reception and so forth. But in life, sometimes faster is better, and sometimes let's slow it down, let's discuss, let's do a survey here, let's ask some people, and then make a decision. And men, if you look at our brains, another thing that Science Digest proves, and the research there, is that when you have a stress response, a cortisol, as soon as you have the amygdala, which makes cortisol or stimulates cortisol to be produced, blood flows in a man's brain, bypasses the emotions, and goes straight to action. And men have 30 times more testosterone in their bodies in order to support that action, because testosterone gives you faster reaction time. So men are like sitting around waiting. Even when it looks like a guy's doing nothing, he's doing something. He's waiting for the emergency.
Yes.
See, it's like when it's there, you'll see them just jump to life. And it goes straight to action, whereas for a woman under moderate stress, blood flow doesn't go to action. It goes right, it fills the emotional part of the brain 8 times more than a man. The emotions go up, and suddenly she says, now we need to ask questions, and let's talk about it. And men often, if they don't value that difference, if they don't understand that difference, we feel like women are holding us back, or we misinterpret women and say insulting things, like, why are you making a big deal out of this? And she said, I'm not making a big deal. I just want to talk about it. And he's saying, well, why do you have to talk about it if it's not a big deal? It may bring up something, but men misinterpret, because only time a man experiences strong emotions, we have emotions too, of course, but usually for a man, emotions rise when there's a problem and you don't know what to do to solve it. If something's holding us back from solving a problem, we feel like we can't solve it, then fear comes up, anger could come up. So for a man, negative emotions means inability to solve problem. For a woman, negative emotion means just stress, change. That's how women cope with change, is by having an emotional reaction. Men cope with change by pushing away from the emotions and taking action. So both things are complementary, and if we have a positive way of dealing with it, knowing how to deal with it.
And it's understanding the differences.
It's understanding them, making sense of them.
Yes.
And you know what's fun for me, after 32 years of teaching Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, in the last 12 years, there's a huge amount of brain research, which really helps us to understand these differences, because you can look at the way women's brains and men's brains, and neuroscientists will say, we were astounded, wowed by the differences that we would see. And then you bring it down to the hormonal level. On a hormonal level, you can see such clear differences. You know, in terms of every month, a woman is preparing to make a baby. Her body's designed to make a baby. Her hormones have to fluctuate every time. There's a fluctuation of hormones, of estrogen and progesterone. Men don't have that fluctuation. Men have a fluctuation of one hormone. Testosterone goes up, testosterone goes down.
Of course, there is philosophy that says that men do have their monthly time.
Well, men have a time every 7 days, is what we have to understand. And this is proven biologically, is that first of all, to understand, when testosterone levels go low in a man, often people think, oh, testosterone makes men negative. Actually, it's testosterone going low that makes men grumpy, irritable. And if testosterone goes low and estrogen, the female hormone, goes high, that's when men get aggressive. Aggressive behavior in males, we have San Quentin right over the bay. You look at all those guys, you look at those big muscles, or a lot of them, I don't want to stereotype, but a lot of them have these big muscles. They're out working in the yard. I taught in San Quentin. You would think that their testosterone levels are super high. But if you measure their testosterone levels in the morning, they're almost zero. It's because they have a body mass that has to support high testosterone levels. They use up their testosterone in order to make those muscles. So often you'll see for muscle men, they're always looking for libido products. Guys like me, I never run out of testosterone. I got plenty, so I don't need a libido product, clearly. But when guys have a lot of muscle, they use up their testosterone to make the muscles. And the symptom is not just low libido of low testosterone. Anytime a man is grumpy, irritable, inflexible, pouting, he always has low testosterone in those moments. When a man is most positive, flexible, charming, delightful, helpful, wanting to solve the problem, courageous, his testosterone levels are normal. If he's under great danger and he doesn't know what to do, so he doesn't have confidence, then his testosterone levels will spike 3 or 4 times. And if they go too high, they convert into estrogen. There's an immediate conversion into estrogen that floods his brain with emotions, and that's what makes men vindictive, aggressive, negative, and commit crimes. It's all about men becoming too feminized that actually causes men to misbehave. The more we can help men be men, men behave much better. Same thing with women.
Are you saying that's like a forced behavior then, when men become more feminized?
Well, what I'm saying is, if you look at almost every male in San Quentin, and almost a high percent of children with learning difficulties, boys with learning difficulties, ADD, ADHD, the category where there's the highest risk of all of these impairments of brain function and behavior function, you'll see that extremely high percent, did not have fathers present when they were growing up. Yeah. You have to realize that 52% of children today do not have fathers present. This is a disaster. For males, it's a disaster. And for females, it's a disaster, not so much in their academic scores, but in their body image, their sense of a woman, feeling worthy, feeling like I can depend on someone. All those social skills they haven't learned because they had a single mother who couldn't have a positive relationship with a male. But a boy who doesn't have a positive role model of a male, he never develops the masculine energy. He doesn't feel confident. You see, I feel confident what I do, so I'm able to maintain almost a Zen-like experience of nothing ever bothers me because I know, and if something does bother me, then I know how to deal with that. Men today are not even taught how to deal with stress. They're often encouraged, and this is what you're kind of getting at. Are we feminizing men? Well, if every time a man's upset, we ask him, what are you feeling? We're feminizing men. Yeah. That's the way women cope with stress. What a man needs to do is cool off, quiet the mind, which often many cultures have taught men meditation, go into cave, and then analyze the problem. Here's the difference. You know, today we have therapy to help people. 90% of the people who go to therapists are women because it's person-centered. It's eye contact, it's empathy, it's asking lots of questions, it's sharing feelings. A very good thing to help women cope with stress. And it's also a very good thing to help men who have big tragic stresses like loss in the family or some big problem. Then they'll have those strong emotions. Then they need that kind of support. But for most challenges men have, Freud developed the whole system of psychology. He started with Freud. It was mostly male clients. If you go into a Freudian analysis, go with Freud, you go into a room that was dark. Second, there'd be a couch, a cave. It was a cave. You'd go into a room, you'd lie down on a couch, you'd face the opposite direction of your therapist, no eye contact. The therapist is taking notes off to the side, and the therapist never answers any of your questions. He just asks you a question like, why would that happen? And you say to your therapist, well, what do you think about that? He'll say, what do you think I think about that? But it's always about analyzing a problem. What he did is had people analyzing how things in the present relate to things in the past. He could have gotten the same results by simply having men analyze math problems. One of my brothers, who was all stressed out the way he dealt with his stress, because he was a math major, he would just do math problems and fall asleep. It's literally, if a man uses the left brain solving problems with confidence, his testosterone levels come back to normal again. So if my wife makes me grumpy, let's say some interaction, I get grumpy, I call a timeout. I said, let's not talk about this more. I need to think about this for a while. And before I can think about it in a positive way, I go out and do something that makes me feel good. I might go for a drive. I might go watch an action movie, something that I enjoy doing that sort of pumps up testosterone. Then I have a good mood. Then I go back and I think about our conversation. And what I made a big problem suddenly becomes a little problem. The same thing happens for women if they're upset about something. If you can ask questions without interrupting with solutions, and she gets a chance to talk, and then you say, and tell me more, what else do you feel? She will go to deeper levels of feeling, and if she can reveal more of what she's feeling inside, her stress levels go down, and problems that seem big suddenly shrink, and become smaller. But it's almost like opposite. So we don't understand each other.
That's the wisdom
yeah.
that comes with the education.
Right, and that's growing gender intelligence.
Yes.
And in the workplace or at home, the idea here is not to sort of fix each other, like men need to be fixed or women need to be fixed. It's really changing our culture. Think about fish in a fish tank. If you have a sick fish in a fish tank, or if they're all getting sick, you don't go and analyze them. You simply just change the water. And that's what we have to do, is change our culture that recognizes and values what women bring to the table, what men bring to the table, how we can communicate in a way to learn and discover and experience that different value.
One thing that I have been researching is when a couple equally makes the same amount of money, or the man makes more, and I'm asking you this with your research, is do you think that it affects the romantic relationship in more of an adverse way when the man has more power? I was been doing some study with Psychology Today, and they are saying that it does impact the romance in a relationship. Whereas if you have a woman that makes more or the same, the general consensus is that the romantic relationship is better. What's your opinion?
Well, it's certainly not my experience, okay?
Oh, okay.
As a marriage counselor, I don't know what those statistics are. I wouldn't be heavily against that. It's just, my experience. I continue after 30 years to have a daily practice. I travel around the world teaching seminars, writing books, but I stay in the game here. The relationships have changed a lot. And what I find that interferes with romance is lack of awareness, either on the man's part or the woman's part, of attending to keeping the romance alive. And feeling as though a woman is feeling heard and she's not being, same blind spots here. Women's complaints that kill romance are he doesn't listen, I feel taken for granted, he walks on eggshells around me, he doesn't say things because it's going to upset me, and whatever it be, the same challenges, they just show up differently in a personal relationship. And the truth is, we haven't been taught how to have successful romantic relationships. It's not something that existed in our history. This is a myth that people used to be romantic. People were sexual, but they weren't romantic. Romances, and why romances suddenly become so important, and of course for women. Men don't, there's not big articles written, men are complaining, not enough romance, not enough romance, not enough men. It's like Valentine's Day is a woman's holiday.
That converts to the sexuality.
But here you have, romance is something that women are experiencing. When they see an article or a movie which is romantic, women go, wow, this turns me on. It stimulates a hormone called oxytocin. Oxytocin is the hormone that gives rise to climax, but it also gives rise to lowering stress in women. So women's stress levels are much higher today than men's. Now this has been measured. When women are in the workplace stimulates testosterone. Testosterone is associated in the male body with lowering stress. Testosterone is associated in the female body of interfering with the production of oxytocin, and oxytocin will lower a woman's stress. So without getting technical, here's an example from a Harvard study. If you put men and women in a cooperative, nurturing activity, women's stress levels go down, men's stress levels go up. If you put men and women in a competitive activity, women's stress levels go up, men's stress levels go down. So now you take women and you put them in a competitive environment of the workplace, you would guess their stress levels go up. And research shows that the average woman, not every woman, but the average woman in statistics has twice the stress level in the workplace than a man does. Now that woman comes home with twice the stress level, then they find that it doubles again, and it's 4 times as high because she's been spending all day doing testosterone activities. She hasn't been building up her oxytocin so that she's able to continue with responsibilities at home and not feel stressed out.
So she needs to get the massage and go shopping and take the nice jacuzzi bath to relax. I mean, it's
those things, for those people that don't know, you know, but all those behaviors you just described and more are oxytocin stimulators.
Yes.
So when women understand this, then it gives them permission to say, well, if I'm going to be working, then I need to pamper myself. Yes. And it makes men go, yes, go pamper yourself, you know, let them do the foreplay. Because if she has high oxytocin, she will be more responsive to his sexual interest, and she will also keep his sexual interest alive. Because quite often the complaint I hear from women over 40, whether they're making money or the primary money winner or not, is over 40 and then in the 50s, women are complaining that my husband's not that interested in sex. And of course, she also is interested in romance. Why? Because romance is a big oxytocin producer. Her body just tells her.
Well, it's the foreplay.
That's what foreplay is about, but foreplay won't even work if you don't have the romance. She needs the oxytocin in her body. So when we think that, gee, what happened to all the romantic men? They never existed. You know, Romeo and Juliet are like the ultimate romantic couple because they died before they got married. You know, they would have been cheating on each other like everybody else, you know, because... So the idea is we have to learn how to keep the romance alive, and it takes skills. Now, there's a lot of skills I teach on this, but one simple one is like a weekly date. Often guys will wait to the last minute and say, honey, what do you want to do tonight? As if he's being so romantic because he's doing whatever you want to do, I'll do. Because to a man, if you said, I'll do whatever you want, he goes, great, let's just sit and watch TV and then have sex. Okay, so he's happy with that. So he thinks he's doing this great gift to you by waiting to the last minute without any thought, you know, hey, he's casual. That doesn't create romantic hormones in a woman. And often it's like too sudden. She needs time to think about what she would like. So a week in advance, what you do to create romance, it's a partnership. It's not men doing it all. It's not women doing it all. Absolutely. But it's a conversation where he asks her, what would you like? What else would you like? Let's look at some things you'd like. Then he picks from those things something that he would like that she likes. And even if nothing he likes, he still picks from that. Because for him, really, it's only 2 hours a week. He's going to do whatever it takes to make her happy. Because here's the unique thing about men. If she's happy, he's happy. Yes, and he also knows he's going to get laid. So there's a big win for him, you know? It's like, so you've got that relationship. And then there's even more to it. Once you've planned this date, it's a week in advance. All week, she can be in this testosterone world, but she's thinking, yeah, but Saturday night, you know, I'm going to wear this dress, I'm going to put this on, I'm going to look this way, I'm going to get my hair done, I'm telling my friends about it. All those activities, all that thought process is saying, I have a personal life where I'm going to be the center of attention. I don't make any decisions. Things are going to be done for me. And just knowing that's there, her oxytocin levels will continue to rise throughout the week. A simple thing that makes a huge difference. And men are missing out on this. They don't have a clue. They don't even know why is she not happy? And that's one of our blind spots is why don't women feel happy? I'm doing this and this and this. Because we're focusing on certain things that we think would make her happy, when really it's a lot of little things that we're overlooking that could make women happy.
And you know, really it comes down to making ourselves happy.
Ultimately.
You know, I mean, that's the bottom line as far as I'm concerned, that I have learned through my relationships and my life is, if you're not happy within yourself and keeping that oxytocin going, and like I need to have my alone time. I need to regenerate. That's what I do. Excellent.
Now, what we've talked about is the foundation of a successful partnership. It's not a successful partnership. It's the foundation. Is that you have to be able to make yourself happy so that your partner in your relationship can make you happier.
Yes.
And this is one of the biggest messages I give to men, because often men, they can make she's happy to see him, she does these things, she's happy, So he starts to believe, I have the power to make her happy. I can make her happy. And you feel good about that. Then when she's not happy, you feel beaten up. But if you realize you can never make a woman happy, just get that. You cannot make a woman happy, but you can make her happier. And that's a secret. If you just get, when my wife's not happy, I don't feel beaten up at all. I don't get defensive about it. I go, okay, I know what to do to gradually help her as she's going through her process of becoming happier. The main thing I do is don't make it worse for her. Because that's what most guys do. When a woman's not happy, we make it worse.
Well, isn't it because you want to fix?
Yeah, that makes it worse. We want to say, why are you unhappy? You got this, think about this. Hey, practice some of your gratitude affirmations, honey. Relax. You're the one who's thinking positive all the time. Now you're so negative. Just get back to your positive thinking. He's saying that stuff. It's going to make it worse. Instead of like, yeah, that must be hard. That's difficult. 3 magic words for men to know when your wife is talking. Don't fix it, and occasionally say this word. That must be so frustrating. And she'll go, yes, it is.
Just
and then she'll talk more. And
yes.
then occasionally, you don't use that word too much, then that's so disappointing. It was disappointing. And then she'll talk more about that. And then you go into occasionally go, gosh, that is so hard. It is hard. And then you go into another magic word is, tell me what else. Tell me more of your concerns. Concern is a magic word. Women have a million concerns that they feel like there's no permission to express. I mean, women can go, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen, this can happen. And a man thinks, in a sense, encouraging that is going to make it worse. It's going to make her more upset. No, encouraging that makes her feel safe to be an emotional being to whatever extent she's feeling emotional at that time. And then she relaxes. And why does she relax? Because the safety to be herself says she's not alone. That she can be herself. And when you feel you're not alone, that you're seen and heard, then help is always available. And when you have that feeling, oxytocin levels shoot up, the stress hormone cortisol goes down. And this is where women, that's why they want a man in their life. And this is what I tell women. We're talking about the work world. What do you need a man for? If you can make money, if you can make more money than a guy even, so why do you need a man? The reason you need a man, you have to feel it inside. The reason you need a man is so you don't have to do it all.
Absolutely.
See, you can do it all, but you use a man so you don't have to do it all.
Yes.
Otherwise, he's going to like, why do I want to be with her? There's nothing I can do for her. Men want to feel like I did something. I've got a job to do. I wouldn't want to go to a job where they don't appreciate what I have to offer, and they can't appreciate what I have to offer unless they feel a need for that. So women today are going through kind of a crisis. Why do I need a man? And if you don't feel the need for a man, then there's no job opportunity for a man.
That's right. I guess that's why there's a lot
we're out of work, and we see this is happening today,
And there's a lot of single women out there.
A lot of single women and single men.
Yes, and that's a good reason why.
That's part of the reason why, it's a big thing.
Wow. Well, oh my goodness.
So probably this is a good time for questions.
Yes, I think so. Well, is there anything else that you want to tell us about?
Blind spots. We cover one of the blind spots in personal relationship, but just to mention, for our personal relationships to work, we also want to make sure the workplace is a better environment. And, this is going to take many years to completely transform the workplace. But we have to begin from somewhere.
Well, shouldn't we begin with the home first?
Well, I have begun with the home for 30 years, but at the same time, people don't always translate these MarsVenus ideas into the workplace. And the workplace, it's a little bit different because, see, the rules are different in the workplace, the old rules. The old rules in the workplace is this is not a place for your personal fulfillment. This is time is money, get the job done. When you're off the job, that's when you can have happiness and fulfillment. And that was fine for hundreds of years for men because a man could sacrifice his happiness, could do awful jobs, painful jobs, and push it away and say, suck it up, don't complain, get the job done so you get a result. You bring it home to a woman who goes, I love you. And then he gets his personal fulfillment because this woman has created a home for him, a family for him. She appreciates him. So it gives his life meaning and purpose for all that sacrifice. But as women are in the workplace, they're going, wait a second, we don't like this sacrifice. This is like a creepy place here. There's no personal fulfillment. You hear again and again why women in very high positions don't want higher positions. There's this book, Cheryl Selman's talking about lean in. Women, only 16% of executives, CEOs are women. You need to push in, you need to lean in. Well, we did the interviews with those women who didn't lean in, and we asked why. And the answer is, why would I want to spend an extra 20 hours a week? I'm already making over $100,000. Why do I need to make more by sacrificing my life? They're saying, I have plenty of money to live, so I want a personal life. I don't want to give that much to this business. And that's one of the wisdoms that women bring to the workplace. I was fortunate in my own journey, and I'm very stress-free. I'm 61 years old. I'm not sick. All three of my brothers have heart attacks. One committed suicide. My sister has dementia. Another has Alzheimer's. I'm completely healthy. Now, how did that happen? I'm the same genes. Part of it is my marriage. Is that when I married Bonnie, she said, I will not have children unless you promise to be 50-50. I said, okay, I promise. You promise. Anytime I want you at home to help, you'll do it. I said, okay. And she called on that card again and again and again. So I could not become this workaholic. I'm just not allowed. She had the power. I gave her the power. She said, I don't want to raise kids all by myself. You're going to have to do this.
And
otherwise,
bless her for that.
And bless her for that, because I was forced to find out, to experience the fulfillment of a personal life as opposed to postponing my fulfillment till I retire, which a lot of men, again, it's like postponing your fulfillment till you get home. They're postponing their fulfillment till they retire. And the statistics today, these are real and statistics from life insurance companies, is when a man retires, this is average, this is not every man, but when a man retires, he has 1 year before his first heart attack. Yeah. Now, before they had stents, a man had 3 years before he died. And that was the statistic. Because men need work, and yet we need balance, work and home, balance, home and both those things together. So this is all part of gender intelligence. And as the workplace begins to appreciate, hey, if we can create a work environment that is nurturing to the well-being and happiness and fulfillment of our workers, they will be more productive. Absolutely. And that has not been in men's vision. Their thing is get the job done, reward, reward. The one who sacrifices the most gets the biggest reward, who produces the biggest result. If you stay overtime, see, they don't require you to work overtime, but if you stay overtime, then you get more clients and they see you working harder, you get more results, you get the promotions. That's how you get the promotions. So they're not saying you have to work overtime, but that's the message you get.
But that paradigm is shifting.
Yeah, that's the female.
It's great.
It's teamwork, it's quality of life, it's inclusion, it's diversity. These are all female values coming into the workplace. So we need to just become more conscious of them. And then suddenly it happens faster. It's like wake up to what's happening and make it happen more.
Yes, and I love what Dalai Lama says about the Western women changing the world.
Dolly?
Yeah. So,
And what does he say? Go ahead, say it.
Well, he says that the Western women are changing the way the business world is happening.
Oh, clearly. And one of the things is Warren Buffett, more of a prophet to the men in the room than the Dalai Lama.
Warren Buffett.
That's what I'm just about to quote.
The first two things, I don't know.
I'm about to quote it, but go ahead.
I use this in my show, is unconditional love. That's the first.
Well, I'm glad he said that too, but recently I quoted an article. What he said is that there's a bright future for America because up to now we've been using 50% of our potential. The male way of doing things. And with more women in the workplace, we have another 50% potential. Okay. And we can begin to experience 100% potential as men and women are working together. And that's what we can look forward to as we grow in a positive intelligence that appreciates those values.
Yes, amen. Definitely. He also says, and having no doubt.
Right?
I don't know. That's, I think, a challenge for a lot of people.
Having no doubt?
Yeah.
Who says that?
Doubt.
Warren Buffett?
Warren Buffett, yeah.
Well, if you know Warren Buffett is just, he'll spend hours reading the textbooks of companies. If you've ever read a company's final statements, before you invest in it, it's just hours and hours of nerd stuff. I'd fall asleep on the third page. He loves that stuff, so he doesn't doubt because he actually comes from, I want to fully research everything before I make a decision. Absolutely. So he has already within him a greater feminine balanced with his masculine. Because when I say women bring this, men bring that, I have both. That's why I've been successful. But part of how I've been successful is a wife who demanded that of me. And by respecting the feminine, my own feminine develops. So I'm not against men becoming more sensitive, more feminine, but not by becoming women. No. By respecting women more, it automatically happens. And this is like, most people didn't know that. I certainly didn't know that back in the 70s, 80s when I started this. I was just trying to get men to open up, share your feelings, be everything the women wanted you to be. And then the women would say, I don't want to be married to him. I'm not turned on to him. I love him, but he's like a child. He's so sensitive. I feel like I have to walk on eggshells around him. Women would say, ever since he learned that I feel hurt phrase, I feel like I have to protect him. It's like, what happened to my protector? One woman said to me, gee, I love him, but I want a divorce. I said, why? I didn't realize when I married him, he had so many problems. It's just, men are not designed to be sharing feelings like this. Otherwise, you tell them, we'll reward you for it. They'll go to town. Men will do whatever women really are wanting. If women said, hey, we're turned on by men who walk on their hands, you'd see in 10 years, men will be having contests who can walk on their hands the most. This is always throughout history, women have been on this kind of pedestal where men will do what it takes to make women happy. And then it goes to an extreme, and then it becomes dysfunctional. That's what happened. So now we're going to higher consciousness within ourselves. My own self demands a balance of masculine and feminine inside of me. That's the challenge of relationships. It's the most challenging thing to stay married today, to have a great relationship, to keep a sex life going, all those things. A lot of people just, it's too much trouble, I don't want to do it, I don't need it. That's their choice. But if you want to experience exuberance and passion and success in your life, intuition, it's finding wholeness within yourself by interacting with somebody else. Because you can, as a foundation, find happiness in yourself, but can you be happy with somebody else and share? That's a real test. And that challenges us to get beyond the big ego inside, to get beyond the I have to be right, to get beyond my little tantrums that I throw, and learn to find that balance. And that's, I see people getting divorced all the time over the stupidest things. Over the stupidest things. You say, what did they say? Little things like that. And I'll just throw up one other idea. I think it's the stupidest thing in the world to have a marriage, 4 children, 3 children, 6 children, to get a divorce because one partner had an affair. What a stupid thing to do. Somebody makes a mistake, and yet it's acceptable today. It's like your get out of jail free card. My husband had an affair, so we're going to end our relationship. My wife had an affair, so I'm going to end the relationship. How about learning the real essence of love, which is not demanding perfection from someone, but learning to find forgiveness, learning to find empathy, learning to find love in our hearts, not demanding perfection of someone. Suddenly we're like so obsessed with sex. It's become such a big thing in this culture, so repressed. And yes, I'm the biggest exponent of monogamy and passionate monogamy. But at the same time, I know the journey that many people go on is sometimes before you can really learn the value of something, you have to make a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes. Yes. Now, I'm not saying if your husband's cheating on you all the time, you stay with him. But I help people all the time, 1 or 2 affairs, and they just close their hearts. That's it. I go, are you a fool? Do you demand perfection of everyone? Let's open our eyes here. Let's wake up and find out what love is about. Love is about growing together, helping each other to bring out the best in each other, rather than like expecting people to be perfect on their own.
Well, I think maybe we should open this up to some questions.
Sure, that sounds great.
We've got some participants out here that anyone want to ask some good questions to John while we have him here live? If you're thinking about it, please.
Yes.
Okay, Norma.
I think it's important when
Put that mic up to Norma.
Yeah,
there we go.
I think it's important when girl-boy meet that they find out as best they can if each other loves themselves, because my understanding is you can only love another to the degree that you love yourself.
It's a wonderful concept, absolutely. I doubt anybody that falls in love is going to be held back by do you love yourself, because here's where there's a challenge there, and I believe I'm really into what you just said. I feel that so many, if we look at, let me back up for a moment, the number one time of divorce, okay, if you look at age groups, who gets the most divorces by a long shot? It's kids around 28 years old who got married when they were between the ages of 18 and 23. So these are just learning about themselves. Now, at a time when relationships were based upon survival, that was fine. But our relationships are no longer based on survival. We're looking for personal fulfillment. And what you said is right. It's really hard to truly love someone if you don't love yourself. But in the beginning of the relationship, this is where you'll easily be deceived. If you don't love yourself, to be with somebody who seems to love you, you immediately start loving yourself. You go, oh, finally somebody sees me. And you feel really good, you feel great for a while, until they decide one day to say something critical. And then you kind of go, I thought you loved me. You don't love me. And you fall apart and you get all upset and you get defensive because you can't say, oh, they're having a bad day. Let me be more loving to them. Instead, your whole makeup goes, but I depend on you to prop me up and make me feel good. So if you can't do that today, then I crash. So that's where you are able to experience the level of self-esteem and self-love that you have. And personally, my belief, I've written a whole book on this, is you don't really develop self-realization. You can't. Your brain is still developing up to about 27, 28 years old. So that's really where you sort of go into this place where you're able to see who you are separate from other people's thoughts. And that's only if you're enlightened. In the past, that was called enlightenment. Enlightenment would be if all of you decided to get up and leave in the middle of my talk, I would think, oh, they must have had to use the bathroom, instead of, oh, they didn't like my talk. So you can say to a child, I'm not mad at you, it's just your behavior. The child's going to go, no, you're mad at me. If you say, that's bad, but you're not bad, a child is always going to go, no, if I did something bad, I'm bad. It takes a good 28 years of healthy brain development to really build your self-esteem so that when you come home one day and your partner's in a bad mood and they're rejecting you or being critical of you, or they just give you a look and you don't like it, you don't suddenly collapse and throw a big tantrum. But instead, you feel like, okay, I still feel good about myself. I'm not dependent on them to feel good about myself. I realize that this is an off day for them, so let me do something nice for them. That's healthy self-esteem. For me as a teacher, one more example of it was when I was a young teacher, if there was a small audience, I felt like I was not as successful. But the worst experience I ever had was when there was one person in the audience. I would have preferred to be none and I could have left. But that one person was there. And then after the talk, they told me what an awful job I did. So when I went home, all I thought about was that person for weeks. It was just a terrible thing. Later, when I finally got to where I could have an audience, say of 30 people, there would be 2 people in the audience who didn't like the talk. And they always want to run and tell you that. You know, it's like, why would you say this? I'm offended by that thought. You should say this. But other people liked it. When I would go home, it'd be 28 people loved it, 2 people didn't like it. Who am I thinking about all night? Those 2 people who didn't like it. That's a symptom of low self-esteem.
Right.
Now, those people don't like it. I just chuckle and go, well, it's the wrong talk for you. Sorry, but everybody else liked it. That's called high self-esteem.
Well, one thing I learned from Ruiz is not to take things personally.
And that's a challenge. And that's part of why I wrote this book, which is helping to understand the blind spots. And so many ways that men behave, women often take it personally. So let me give you a concrete example of that. You could be working with a team of men and women, 2 guys, 2 women at a table. And once you're getting excited, the guys get excited, it's like they're playing basketball, grabbing the ball from each other to sink it. Who's going to have the best idea? I'll build on that. And maybe one woman's joining in, maybe not. And there might be kind of witnessing. They're thinking about all this, they're processing all this information, but nobody's saying, hey, you haven't said anything. What do you think about this? So she feels like, oh, they don't respect me, they don't value me. Why aren't they asking me what I'm saying? Isn't it obvious that I'm not talking? I have something to say? But that's not obvious to men. You see, if there's 4 men at the table and one man's not talking, we ignore him. We don't want to embarrass him and say, Bill, you have nothing to say. You say, I don't have much to say today. So we don't want to embarrass him. We want to save face. So if he's not saying anything, we don't point it out. We assume that if you have something to say, you'll say it. And so when women are often excluded,
That's the male dynamic.
that's the male dynamic. That's the
yeah.
male. So if a woman can understand that, it makes it easier to not take it personally.
Well, and a woman needs to be more assertive, because I've been in boardrooms and women need to be more assertive in their communication when they're dealing with men. I mean, I learned that.
Ideally, yes.
That's what I've dealt with in my business life.
And so the key is it's easier for a woman to be more assertive if she feels that nobody's against her. It's hard to be assertive if you feel people are against you. Then what happens, if you're assertive and you feel people are against you, then you feel confrontive. And some women, I hear this word a lot, well, I have to confront them. How am I going to confront them? I go, if you confront, all you're going to get is resistance.
Yeah,
you can
that's
assert.
a negative
It's a
connotation.
negative,
Yeah.
right. So you always, you know, even in Sheryl Sandberg's book, which is Lean in Me, telling women to push harder, she's explaining something I've been teaching for years, which is women, you want to get ahead, you make men your friends.
Yeah.
Women do not rise up if you make men your enemies. Men resist enemies. They fight you if you're an enemy, but you make them your friends and you ask what you want. That's the key with men.
One thing I've been observing with the communities that I'm dealing with women that are primarily just women, is that the women are like almost too aggressive, and it's like, and I know there's a pendulum that's happening.
That's right.
And it's like, wake up, come on, you know, you don't have to be negative towards men.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's where I'm coming from.
That's right.
And it's like, wait a minute, we're here to play together. We're here to do this together. So.
And I think that's the whole idea. Even, you know, Cheryl's book is really popular now, but even there's kind of an undertone of women, we have to get together and rise up, as opposed to women, we need to include men in this conversation.
Well,
and that's what this is about, which is why I have a woman writing this book, helping me hear those issues that she had, translating it in ways that men could hear, and my issues, helping to translate that into a language where women could understand.
And to me, it's a residual of women not being on a team environment like men are. Men are always, you know, with sports.
Different ways of team. Yeah, men have their growing up with team.
They're growing up with, where women have had to shift to be more team-oriented, even though that they like cooperative environment.
Well, what you're saying, if I could clarify there, what you have is women have always been in a cooperative community as opposed to team. Team implies competition.
Right.
That's where men have grown up in competitive environments. Let me give you an example. If I'm on a baseball team and coach says, John, you're going to sit this one out on the bench. I go, but coach, I'm great. Why are you putting Bill on the bench? I'm better than Bill. He says, no, it's Bill's turn. So Bill misses it a few times. I said, look, coach, I could be in there. I can do better than Bill. He's losing the game. Coach says, no, you're going to sit this out. Coach says this to me 3 times. Finally, on the 4th time, I said, coach, he's messing up. Let me in the game. Coach says, okay, you can go in the game. To a guy on a competitive environment, he learns no doesn't mean no. No means not yet. Whereas a girl could be on the bench. If she doesn't understand that on a team, you get, no, you're not going to do this. She goes, okay, I'll be really good. I won't push. Next time I'll have my turn. And the reason the coach lets me on that team is he sees that ambition. He sees that push, and I'm doing it in a friendly way. Come on, coach, you know I can do it. As opposed to, coach, you're being awful. You're not letting me on. I'm not throwing a tantrum. I'm working with him. These are a lot of skills that men develop by being on the team that women miss out on. And having team sports helps women to bring that collective awareness in a way that understands the way men do it. Because really, it's not a lot of changing who we have to be. It's really understanding what the others are.
And learning how to communicate.
Yeah.
And that's huge, because communication's an art.
Yes. And often, you know, when it comes to communication, women think men have to learn how to communicate.
Oh.
And my message is, women, you have to learn how to communicate as well.
Yeah,
okay, it's not like women are better. It's twofold.
No,
I sit there every day watching women destroy their relationships talking to their husbands. And I watch men destroying their relationships by their responses. So it's an art, both sides.
One thing that I learned from, I think, your first book or one of your books is how you say things, the tone of voice.
Oh, huge.
I mean, it's huge. And I learned that years ago from you.
Yep.
And how you present yourself and how you're talking to somebody. It makes a difference with anybody, really. But
it makes a difference in all situations, but then there's certain subtleties with gender, and when we take the time to learn that, it's very key. Even subtleties like in business, I teach women how to ask for support. And I give the example, a woman has got all these, she's like having to fill out the forms at the end of the day, and the guys are coming in and they're giving their forms. And she says to the guys, hey guys, could you bring your forms in? Don't wait till last minute, bring them in early, then I can get home to my kids. And they all go, sure. And then they bring them in late. And she says, I keep asking, they keep saying yes, but they keep bringing them in late. And I said, change one word. Instead of saying, could you do this? Simply say, hey guys, would you do me a favor and bring your forms in early? Don't use could, use would. If you ask a man, would you do something, he's now making a promise, and it activates a different part of his brain that says, okay, if I do that, what would happen if I don't do that? Well, if I do it, then I get credit for it. It literally makes a man think for a moment. And what she said, all she did is change that one word, and now everybody was bringing the things in early, and they felt like, you know, like little kids. I brought it in early for you. See, I did that. It's getting men to remember to do things. One of our gender intelligence tests is who has better memories, men or women. And it's proven, women have better memories. The memory part of your brain is twice as big as a man's. And particularly when you're under stress, like you made a promise, am I going to do it, am I not? When women's stress level increases, blood flow goes to your memory. When a man's stress increases, blood flow does not go to his memory. He's got to focus on what can I do now. He can't remember all of his problems at that time. He's got to jump into action.
Well, that's how those neuroconnectors.
It's all about the neuroconnectors.
Yeah,
I mean, it's amazing. We are designed to perfectly complement each other. or be enemies if we don't understand how those forces can come together and combine.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that, I know you have helped thousands of people, John, and I commend you for your passion and your purpose, because I know that you have helped so many people, and you've helped me understand the male beast, the male man, you know.
I'm a mailman.
Yeah, well, at least I got you to laugh.
I was a paper boy as a kid. I was delivering the good news, so I'll still continue delivering it.
Well, it's the good news, and it's you know, it's having the desire to want that. You know, and I've been in your books for years.
Thank you.
So I totally appreciate it.
What I will say about my new book, which is really fun, as a writer, you write a book until you're sick of it, and then you have to edit it, and you have to read it again, and then they edit it, look at it, you have to read it again, you have to look at the final copy. I gave it some distance before the final copy, and then I read it again. I just to let myself be like as if I'm reading it the first time.
So did that take the 2 years?
Well, part of it. And I truly I felt such an increase in my own gender intelligence, having stepped back. I felt so much more compassion for women in the workplace, what women are going through. And it's not as though men don't have the potential for the compassion. We just have to be approached in the right way.
Do you think you had more compassion for yourself through this?
No, I have more compassion for women. We have it so much
okay.
easier as men. There's just no doubt about it. I mean, men can whine and complain, but we have it so much easier than women. And I can physiologically prove it. But if you start to attack men have no compassion. Mm-hmm. It just goes away. If you bring in the Dalai Lama again, he'll talk about in Tibetan tradition, they say men have the compassion and women have the wisdom. Yeah. And I truly experienced that. When I read this book, I felt such compassion, and I'm reflecting on all the wisdom that women can bring into the workplace on how to make it a better place. I mean, this happens in my home. My wife makes our home such a better place. My wife makes all of our relationships. You know, she says, oh, we should have a party. We should do this. You didn't send a thank you note to that person. You need to send a thank you note to that person. Would you know that's one of the best sales techniques you can ever do? Is somebody has an interaction, you thank them for their for buying your product. They're going to buy your product next. Men don't think of that stuff. So there's a relational intelligence that women just come from that men often don't think. Now, we can learn it. So once a man learns it, he has it. Some men who are very successful already have it. And they often had good relationships with their mother, so they learned a lot of that stuff. And to be successful, they also had good relationships with their dad, which gave them the ambition and the drive to make the money, as well as the mother who's sort of teaching the values of relationship, reciprocity, fairness, giving everybody a share, you know, asking questions, the kind of things I'm talking about.
Are there any more questions? Give him the
Let's
mic.
get the mic. Hand the mic there. Thank you.
Yeah, the terms that come to mind for me are, you know, one of the main components of life are money, food, and sex. And yet financial intelligence, gender, or, you know, relationship intelligence,
money, food, and sex, okay?
or preventative health intelligence are really not taught in the schools. So kids come out, they go through an environment in which they create cultures that are weird. You know, high school culture is really strange. And then they come out and they're ready to have a relationship, or they're in a relationship already. Wouldn't it be good if you could get this kind of intelligence, this, you know...
Awaken that intelligence.
Awaken that intelligence.
Definitely our school curriculum is going in the wrong direction. It's no longer just about the ABCs and the addition. You know, that needs to be a part of our education, and social skills, emotional intelligence, relational intelligence, and gender intelligence can be taught at every level along the way. Gender intelligence is a little tricky. It really doesn't, the need for it doesn't really develop fully until we get into our adult years. Often the first thing we need is emotional intelligence in the earlier years, but some gender intelligence, when I'm working with teenagers, the way they light up is when I start talking about their dating experiences. Boy, do they just, oh yeah, you know, he called me, he didn't call back, what was going on? So there's a certain level of gender intelligence there. Then there's another level of it that's applicable to the workplace. But emotional intelligence all the way through school is being missing. The concept of relational intelligence, which is how do you form good relationships, and getting that kind of emotional support in the process of learning, as opposed to just getting recognition for doing good on tests. That's not the answer.
Well, and financial intelligence.
Oh yeah, of course,
I mean,
to learn the
that's
finance.
Because
yeah, I appreciate that.
Most relationships, from what I've heard, one of the big reasons they break up is difficulties in you know, they're incompatible with relationship.
Well,
with money.
again, when people talk about the challenges in relationships, when finances is the real challenge, because it's one of the biggest challenges, I always come down to it's not the finances, it's how you're talking about the finances. It's a communication skill, and we talked about at the beginning, not that I can summarize it with one point, but the overview is that men do tend to be more risk takers, because taking risk actually lowers stress for a man. I could be stressed and go drive my car a little fast, and actually I relax. Most women don't relax in that case. When women feel safe and secure, their stress levels go down. So they tend to be a little bit more, want to ask more questions. And so you get that dynamic, improving communication, then we value the differences coming together. And I have so much to say on that, but our time is limited. So thank you for the point. Clearly, financial intelligence we need to develop.
And that's what my show's about, is
Yeah,
the financial intelligence. Your information is like the foundation. So I really appreciate you sharing and your questions. I think we're coming down to the end, and I hate to close this because this information is so valuable. And again, I thank you for the years of wisdom that you've shared, because it's certainly helped me, and I know others. So, and thank you, audience, for being here and participating. And John.
Thank you all. Thank you all. It's been fun.
Yeah, you've been on, and it's great. And I just want to say thank you for watching, and any feedback that you want to give would be great. And the contact information will be on the credits at the end. And thank you very much for being here. Is there anything that you'd like to add, just for a closing?
Oh, I think the closing idea is if we want greater success in life, it's a win-win for both men and women. If we can just keep thinking win-win for both men and women, we will have a better world. It's opposite forces coming together is what creates life, and it will create a better world and fulfill our dreams of a better world.
Win-win, and always focus on that.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. Thank you, John, very much.
Thank you.
Namaste.